Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Royal Nerd Gaming. I am your host, the Royal Nerd, and today we will be continuing my Apex Legends crash course, Apex for Amateurs. This series is designed to help new players learn about some of the more nuanced parts of the game that the tutorial doesn't really cover. If you haven't seen the first part of the series, covering communication, medicine, and grenades, go check it out. But today's episode will be all about weapons and their attachments, and it's gonna be a little bit longer. That is because weapons are a very important part of Apex, and understanding them is a huge aspect of getting better at the game. Now, the best way to familiarize yourself with them is to hop into the firing range and try them out yourself. To help you with that process, I am going to walk you through all of the attachments, the weapon and ammo types, and all of the weapon's strengths and weaknesses. Let's start with shooting. Left click on computer or right trigger on console lets you fire your weapon from the hip, which is called hip fire. Right click on computer or left trigger on console causes you to ADS or aim down the sights of the weapon. Basic shooter controls. Now, hip fire is less accurate but allows you to move around more. ADSing lets you be more accurate but has a movement penalty that varies depending on the size of the weapon you're using. Obviously, accuracy is important in any shooter game, but don't underestimate hipfire. Movement is a key aspect of Apex, and if you're up close to an enemy, you're not going to be able to keep track of them while aiming down sights. So when you hop into the firing range to practice your aim, make sure you practice your hipfire too. In Apex, just like in most shooters, shooting someone in the head is how you can do the most damage. The amount of damage you do, though, is dependent on what kind of gun you're using, because different weapons do different amounts of damage and have different headshot multipliers. But regardless, aiming for the head is usually the way to go, especially when using precision weapons. Body shots give you the base damage for a weapon, and when you're using a fully automatic gun, aiming center mass might prove easier than trying to keep your aim steady on someone's head. And shooting someone in the legs actually does reduce damage, so keep an eye on that. Each weapon also has a unique recoil pattern, and it's worth it to try and understand as many of them as you can, so that you can be effective with as many weapons as possible. That way, no matter what weapon you end up with, you might at least be able to do some damage. Now, guns in Apex are categorized by two things, the ammo type and the weapon type. There are 5 types of ammo in Apex Legends, as distinguished by their color. Light ammo, heavy ammo, energy ammo, shotgun ammo, and sniper ammo. In the firing range, the weapons are actually on racks organized by ammo type, and when you pick up a weapon, its icon on the bottom right will have a background that matches the color of the ammo it uses. Here, you can see how much ammo the weapon has currently loaded, and how much you have in reserve. Separately from ammo, there are 6 types of weapons in Apex. Assault rifles and light machine guns, mid-range pew-pews, submachine guns and shotguns, close-range pew-pews, sniper rifles, long-range pew-pews, and pistols. Tiny pew-pews, I suppose. Before we start going through the weapons themselves, I want to highlight the different attachments, starting with optics. There are 3 categories of optics in Apex Legends: the open sight HCOGs, the closed sight hollows, and sniper sights. In each of those categories, there are optics of different rarities, as indicated by the color of the optic. White optics are the most common, followed by blue optics, and then purple optics, which can be tricky to find. Now, for other items in the game that use the same rarity scale, like other attachments for example, the color is also indicative of the quality. Purple stocks are better than blue, and blue stocks are better than white. However, that isn't really the case for optics specifically. You should use whatever optics feel comfortable on your weapon, and that will be different for everyone. First, let's talk about HCOGs and hollows. The 1-time HCOG Classic and the 1x Hollow are white optics. Both can be used on any weapon in the game, but neither offer any increased magnification, making them less effective at longer ranges. Next, the blue optics. There's the 2x HCOG Bruiser and the 1 to 2x Variable Hollow. Both of these optics offer 2 times increased magnification and can go on any weapon in the game as well. Furthermore, the Hollow offers the added benefit of being able to switch between 1 and 2 times magnification by pressing the indicated button while scoped in, left shift on PC, and clicking in on the left thumbstick on console. And then we have the purple optics, the 3x HCOG Ranger, and the 2 to 4 times Variable Hollow, which, like its blue counterpart, can switch between the aforementioned magnifications. As these are longer-range scopes, they can only be used on assault rifles, LMGs, and sniper rifles. So all of these optics I've mentioned can be used on snipers, but there are sniper-specific optics that can't be used on any other weapon types. They are the blue 6x sniper optic and the purple 4 to 8x variable optic. Obviously, snipers excel at distance, so these are the scopes that you want to look for if you're planning to play very long range. However, don't underestimate a sniper with a 2x or a 3x optic on it. Snipers can still be very deadly up close. Now, there is one more rarity of optic that I didn't mention. Gold optics. Gold optics are special because they have the ability to identify and highlight targets in battle, and even through smoke, which some legends can throw down as cover. I'll be talking more about each legend in my Legends and Abilities video coming soon. There are only 2 gold optics in the game. The 1x digital threat, or digithreat colloquially, which offers no magnification and can only go on close-range weapons like pistols, SMGs, and shotguns. Then there's the 4 to 10x digithreat, a variable scope which can only go on snipers and has the highest magnification of any sight in the game. The 1x digital threat is rare, but can be found from looting. The 4 to 10x, however, cannot be found amongst ground loot, and will only appear in care packages, or on pre-constructed golden weapons. For reference, golden weapons are perfect versions of a weapon that can be found in special areas, and come equipped with the best possible attachments, including a 4 to 10x scope if it's a sniper. And, just a side note, as of the Chaos Theory update, scopes can now be removed from golden weapons if you do want to replace them. Alright, let's talk about the rest of the attachments. Now, not every attachment can go on every weapon. You can see what attachments your gun can be outfitted with in the bottom right, or by opening up your inventory and hovering over the different slots for more detail. When you're looking at an attachment, a little notification will appear underneath the attachment description if you have a weapon in your inventory that the attachment can fit on. You do not need to have the weapon out for the attachment to be put onto it. But if both weapons in your inventory can receive the attachment, then it will default to whichever you currently have equipped. Like I said before, attachments also follow the rarity scale, and unlike optics, higher level attachments are objectively better. So first, you've got your barrel stabilizers. They reduce the recoil of a weapon, minimizing the spread and making it easier to hit follow-up shots. Just look at how condensed the spray pattern is on the one side compared to the other. Next, you've got your standard stocks. Standard stocks decrease your aim drift, meaning how much your weapon sways when you ADS. They also increase your weapon handling, meaning the speed at which you can pull out the gun and aim down sights. Sniper stocks do the same thing, but are exclusively for snipers. Shotguns really don't need much in terms of attachments. The one thing that every shotgun has a slot for is a shotgun bolt, which increases the fire rate of the shotgun. All of the attachments I just mentioned have white, blue, and purple variants. Next, we move on to extended mags. As you probably could have guessed, extended mags extend the capacity of your magazine. Unlike the other attachments, extended mags actually come in 4 rarities. There are white, blue, purple, and gold extended mags, and magazines of higher levels offer bigger magazines, except when it comes to purple and gold mags. Purple and gold mags extend your magazine by the same amount, but the golden mags, like the golden digithreat sights, have a unique ability. If you put away a weapon with a golden magazine and don't pull it back out for 5 seconds, the weapon will be automatically reloaded. This can be very useful in combat, as instead of spending time reloading, you can just put your weapon away and quickly relocate, or spend that time healing. Now, the thing about extended mags is that, unlike the other attachments I've mentioned, they are specific to an ammo type. Heavy ammo weapons have a different looking extended mag than light ammo weapons. So let's take a look at the extended magazine associated with each kind of ammo. The light ammo magazine is thin and straight, and looks like a small rectangle. The heavy ammo magazine is still rectangular in nature, but is thicker and curved. The extended energy mags can be identified by the 4 silver lines and the lime green stripe on them. And finally, the sniper ammo magazine, which looks kind of like a thick, backwards L with a handle, I guess. I don't know, you can see it there, it's pretty distinct. Now I'm going to talk about each weapon individually, their strengths and weaknesses, and how I like to use them. Let's start with light ammo assault rifles. The R301 is probably the most popular gun in the game. That is because the R301 is so adaptable, and it uses the easiest kind of ammo to find, light ammo. It's got a pretty reliable hipfire spray, making it good at close range. It's got one of the easiest recoil patterns to learn in the game, making it good at medium range, and it even has a single fire, or semi-auto mode, which means that it can work at decently long ranges. To switch your fire mode, you just have to press the indicated button in the bottom right. B on PC, and left on the D-pad on console. While we're on the topic of the R301 single-fire mode, there's actually a hop-up that helps you do more damage when using the R301 semi-auto. Now you may be asking, what are hop-ups? Hop-ups are a special kind of attachment that look kind of like little gears. The term hop-up usually means to supercharge, and that is basically what hop-ups in Apex Legends do. They supercharge weapons in different ways. Hop-ups are very unique and only work with very specific weapons. As a result, they can be quite difficult to find and are all either purple or gold rarity. The hop-up that can go on the R301 is called the Anvil Receiver, and it increases a weapon's semi-auto damage, meaning each individual bullet does more damage when the gun is on single fire than when it's firing full auto. However, it also reduces your semi-auto rate of fire and uses 2 bullets per shot. In any case, that's why I like to run the R301 with a 2x or a 3x sight, depending on whether I'm trying to play more close range or medium range. Next, the G7 Scout. The G7 Scout is not the first gun you would think of when you hear the term assault rifle, as it can only fire semi-auto. That's 1 bullet fired per trigger pull. As a result, the G7 Scout is definitely a gun I use at medium to long range, and want to find a 3x or a 2 to 4x sight for. The G7 Scout is strong because it can fire very fast and is therefore a menace when someone is using it from a decent distance away. At close range, however, it can definitely falter because the hip fire is not the best. That's why I always make sure to run the G7 with a close range alternative. Now, on to the heavy ammo assault rifles. The Flatline is the heavy ammo equivalent of the R301, and like the R301, can be equipped with an Anvil Receiver. The Flatline is just an all-around good assault rifle, but it has a more difficult recoil pattern than the R301, and unlike the R301, doesn't even have a slot for a barrel stabilizer to help reduce that recoil. Hence why I prefer to run the Flatline with a 2x specifically, because I usually end up using it at closer ranges. However, you can make a 3x or even a 2 to 4x sight work for you if you learn the recoil, and especially if you get your hands on an Anvil Receiver. In fact, the Flatline does more damage per bullet than the R301 at base, so the Anvil Receiver is actually more effective on the Flatline. Next, the 30-30 Repeater. The 30-30 is the heavy ammo equivalent of the G7 Scout, and only has a semi-auto fire mode. It can't fire as quickly as the G7, but it does more damage per bullet, and it has the potential to increase its damage even further. The 30-30 has a feature wherein, when you aim down sights, it starts to charge up, as indicated by the bars filling up next to the sight. The more you let the bar fill up, the more damage your next shot will do. You can fire before the bar is full, you just won't get the maximum damage increase. Now, a body shot does 42 damage normally, but at full charge, a body shot does 57 damage. A headshot does 74 damage normally, but at full charge, does 100 damage. So like I said before, when you're using a precision weapon, aim for the head. Next, the Hemlock. The Hemlock is the only assault rifle that utilizes a burst fire mode. It can fire in 3-round bursts, or in semi-auto, but has no fully automatic option. I like to use the Hemlock on burst mode at mid-range, and on semi-auto at long range, and therefore usually look for either a 3x or a 2 to 4 to use with it. However, don't underestimate the Hemlock at close range. It can struggle against fully automatic weapons for sure, but its hip fire with the burst mode or even with the single fire can still get a lot of damage done. Now, let's move on to energy ammo assault rifles, or more specifically, the only energy ammo assault rifle, the Havoc. The Havoc is a fully automatic assault rifle and it does a lot of damage. However, it has a much more sporadic recoil than the R301 or the Flatline. This is definitely a gun I want to run a 2x sight on. The Havoc has a feature that is unique to some energy weapons where it actually takes a second to spin up to maximum speed. You have to hold the trigger for a second or two before it really gets going. Obviously, this is a bit of a detriment and prevents you from being able to effectively fire in short bursts, for example. But that is why the Havoc has a slot for a very special hop-up, namely the Turbocharger. The Turbocharger reduces the spin-up time of compatible weapons. For the Havoc, it removes the spin-up completely, at which point the Havoc becomes a beast of a weapon, especially at close range. And yeah, that's it for assault rifles. On to submachine guns, or SMGs. First, light ammo SMGs, starting with the R99. The R99 is one of the deadliest weapons in Apex. It has an incredibly fast fire rate, and one of the highest DPSs in the game. By the way, DPS stands for damage per second, and is a measurement of how much damage the gun can do in 1 second, as compared to how much damage the gun does with each individual bullet. Got it? Got it. Now, as a result of its incredibly fast fire rate, it also burns through ammo incredibly fast. And the recoil pattern, while not too complicated, can be overwhelming at first because of how fast the gun kicks back. This thing shreds at close range, so generally I look for an HCOG Classic or a Digithread if I can find one, but it can be used from some distance away if you do want to stick a 2-type scope on it. You just gotta be sure you've really nailed that recoil pattern. Next, the alternator. The alternator is like the R99's little brother. Despite how each bullet does more damage than an R99's, the slower fire rate means that the alternator's DPS is ultimately lower. The advantage of that, though, is that the alternator's recoil pattern is much easier to control, and can even be useful at mid-range. I often find myself using a 2-time sight on the alternator. Even so, the alternator is more of a beginning-of-the-game gun, and is probably one you'll want to switch out for an R301 or an R99 when you find one. Alright, on to heavy ammo SMGs. At the moment, there aren't any. That is because the only heavy ammo SMG that was in the game was turned into a care package weapon. Now, I mentioned care packages earlier, but I didn't talk about what they are. So, what are care packages? Well, while you are in a match, there will be times when care packages are dropped from orbit with special rare loot. They could bring rare attachments, high-level armor, or, if you're very lucky, you might even find a power weapon. Power weapons are red rarity, meaning even rarer than gold, and are incredibly powerful. They don't require attachments, as they are inherently outfitted with the best possible attachments, and they don't use normal ammo. Rather, they come with their own individual ammo supply. Once that supply is used up, the weapon is useless. So let's talk about the Prowler. The Prowler used to be a gun you could just find on the ground, but a few seasons ago was moved into the care package. The developers like to switch around what weapons are in the care package to mix up the meta, so this could be outdated eventually. Anyway, if the Prowler were not in the care package, you would find a heavy ammo SMG that can be equipped with an extended mag, a sight, and a stock, and that starts on burst fire mode. It actually fires in a 5-round high-damaging burst. But that's not where I think the Prowler shines. No, it shines when you switch it to automatic, at which point it rivals the R99, especially at medium to close range. But for the time being, the Prowler is in the care package, and the heavy ammo category will remain SMG-less. Now, energy ammo SMGs. There's only one. The Volt. The Volt functions very similarly to the R99, but has a lower DPS. That means it's less useful, right? Well, not necessarily. You see, the Volt has a much easier to control recoil, and still does very good damage, meaning it can actually be utilized at much further distances than the R99 with much more ease. Some people will even use the Volt at ranges designed for an assault rifle, so I definitely recommend fighting a 2-time sight if you want to make the most of this thing. Now, do its strengths make it better than the R99? No. But there are definitely circumstances where it would be the more useful of the two, and therefore has a healthy spot in the meta somewhere between the R99 and the alternator. Alright, time for light machine guns, or LMGs, of which there are only 3. There's actually no light ammo LMG in the game at the moment, so on to the heavy ammo LMG, the Spitfire. In general, the idea behind LMGs is that they're big and bulky, slowing your movement a lot when you ADS, but being able to deal a lot of damage and having lots of bullets to make up for that. And let's just say that the Spitfire is the king of having a lot of bullets. The Spitfire has the potential to have the biggest magazine in the game. At base, the Spitfire has a magazine of 35 bullets, which is already a higher capacity than every assault rifle. But with a purple or gold heavy extended mag, the Spitfire can hold 55 bullets per magazine. On top of that, it does decent damage, has a decent fire rate, and a pretty straightforward recoil pattern that can work with a 2-time sight, a 3-time sight, or even a 2 to 4-time sight. What that means is that the Spitfire can lay down an incredible amount of fire, even at range, and allows for you to make mistakes because you have so many bullets in a magazine before you even have to think about reloading. Its hipfire isn't the best, not horrendous or anything, just not the most reliable, but when it has all that other stuff going for it, who cares? Now, the last 2 LMGs are actually both energy weapons. First, the Devotion. Imagine the Havoc, but bigger, and with a longer spin-up time. The Devotion takes quite a few seconds to spin up to full speed, and you can't really get a good handle on the recoil until it gets going, but once it does, it becomes a damage-dealing machine. It has a very high DPS, and being an LMG, can have a very large magazine. The spin-up is what holds it back, though, which is why you definitely want to find the turbocharger hop-up for it. It doesn't completely remove the spin up like it does for the Havoc, but it shortens it substantially. I don't usually like to run a Devotion unless I can get my hands on a turbocharger, and even then, because it bounces around a lot when it's starting up, I usually don't run it with anything more than a 2-time sight. The other energy LMG is the L-Star, and it is a very unique weapon. It can't take a magazine attachment, or a barrel stabilizer, doesn't have any spot for a hop-up or anything. I mean, really, it only needs a sight and a stock to be fully outfitted. But, basically, the L-Star never needs to be reloaded. In the bottom right, where you can usually see the magazine capacity and the reserve ammo for a weapon, with the L-Star, you'll notice that you only see how much ammo you have in reserve, and when you fire, the L-Star takes directly from your total ammo. However, that does not mean that you can just fire the gun endlessly. Firing for too long will cause it to overheat, at which point you have to replace the weapon's core, which kind of functions like a reload. But if you fire in bursts and allow the weapon to cool down each time you fire, you can avoid ever having to replace its core. Now, that's not the only thing that makes the L-Star unique. It also doesn't slow your movement speed as much as the other LMGs. And the shots it fires are very large and very bright. Bigger bullets means a better chance to hit your enemies, but brighter bullets means that the flare from firing the gun can make it difficult to see. Furthermore, the recoil pattern is a little unwieldy, and the projectiles travel slower than most, making the L-Star not as effective at range. When you're up close and personal with your enemies, however, the L-Star can be a great option, most of all because it can just make it difficult for your enemy to see with how bright it is when it fires. This is definitely a gun I don't recommend using without a sight, probably a 1-times or a 2-times, just because of how disorienting it can be to shoot the damn thing. Now we move on to pistols. Starting with the light pistols, we have the P2020. The P2020 is a fairly default pistol, and not a very good one at that. It fires pretty fast, but doesn't do much damage. Usually you'll pick one of these up if you have nothing else, and then drop it as soon as you find a better gun. However, there is a hop-up that can make the P2020 a viable weapon. Hammer points! Hammer points increase a weapon's damage against unshielded targets. So while an enemy still has shields, you'll still be doing low damage with the P2020. But as soon as their shields are broken, the P2020 will do over double damage and be able to kill a target in 3 bullets. I actually love to run a P2020 with hammer points, as long as I'm running it with a solid weapon that can reliably break enemy shields. The other light pistol in the game is the RE45. It is a very stable, low damage, but fully automatic pistol. It's also a weapon that you'll probably want to drop immediately. Don't get me wrong, the thing is like a mini SMG, and at the start of the game can be pretty decent, but past that you're gonna want to get rid of it. Now there is a hop-up for it called the Quick Draw Holster, and it increases the speed at which you switch weapons and ADS, and also reduces the spread of the weapon, and it is pretty much useless. I mean, in theory, all of that sounds cool, but faster ADS time hardly makes this thing amazing. Drop it as soon as you can. The last pistol is called the Wingman, and unlike the other 2 pistols, it is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. It is a high-powered revolver that does 45 damage on a body shot and 90 on a headshot. Now, when you're first starting out, it can be very hard to hit your shots with the Wingman, especially without a sight. I recommend a 1-times HCOG Classic or a 2-times if you're playing distance. This weapon does have a very high skill requirement, but if you practice with the Wingman and learn to hit your shots, especially your headshots, this thing can wipe full squads. Not to mention that there's a hop-up for it called the Skull Piercer that increases the headshot damage of it from 90 to 101. That means with 2 headshots you can down someone with purple armor. Weirdly enough, you can also attach the hipfire holster to the Wingman, but believe me, no one is opting for faster weapon switch over increased headshot damage. Seriously, the hipfire holster is kinda not great. Now, let's talk about shotguns. First off, you've got the Mozambique. I want to be very clear here. The Mozambique is bad. Worst gun in the game. It's hard to hit your shots with, and it's not the most damaging, especially for a shotgun. Honestly, sometimes I prefer to punch enemies rather than try and shoot them with the Mozambique. Alright, yes, I'm being dramatic, and it can get you kills, but trust me when I say, replace this weapon as soon as you can. Even though it can be equipped with hammer points like the P2020, the P2020 uses them better. When it comes to the Mozambique, just don't. Alright, the EVA 8, a real shotgun. The EVA 8 is a fully automatic shotgun. You can hold the trigger and it'll keep firing at a steady pace. It's got a pretty tight spread, firing its pellets in the shape of an 8. It does solid damage, and the fast fire rate makes it forgiving, because you can fire again quickly even if you miss a shot. Just an all-around solid shotgun. Next up, the Mastiff. The EVA 8 is great for speed, but if you're looking for damage, the Mastiff is the shotgun for you. It fires slower than the EVA 8, and its spread is a horizontal line, making it harder to hit every shot than the EVA, but even so, its damage makes up for all that. The Mastiff's damage output is very high, and aiming down sights actually tightens the spread a lot. So when in combat with the Mastiff, you pretty much always want to aim down sights, even if only for a second when you fire, just to get that tighter spread and high damage. There is still one more shotgun to talk about, and that is the Peacekeeper. It is a power weapon like the Prowler. Because it's a power weapon, you can just assume that it's got good damage, good spread, and good range. It's powerful, that's the idea of the power weapons. It fires its pellets in the shape of a star, which is inherently easier to manage than the horizontal spread of the Mastiff, but also, by aiming down sights, you can actually charge up the Peacekeeper, tightening the spread an incredible amount, so much so that all the pellets firing is actually more like firing a single projectile. What this means is that a charged Peacekeeper can even be used from range. Scary, right? Just remember, the ammo it comes with is all you're gonna get. Alright, on to sniper rifles. The longbow. The longbow is a pretty straightforward DMR. It does good solid damage, has a decent fire rate, and has a slot for the skull piercer, so it can do extra headshot damage too. However, the bullet drop on this weapon is actually pretty substantial, and the bullet travel time is not the best either, so I'd recommend using the sniper at mid-range. Now, if you're trying to hit shots across the map, the Sentinel is the way to go. The Sentinel is a bolt-action sniper. It fires slower than the longbow, but does more damage, and has better projectile speed, making it easier to hit shots at distance. It also has a unique feature where, as long as you have at least 2 shield cells in your inventory, you can press the switch fire mode button to expend those shield cells and amp up the Sentinel. At the bottom right, you'll see that the weapon is amped, and that the bar representing that is decaying slowly over time. Every time you shoot, a chunk of the bar is used up. But while your weapon is amped, it does increased damage, making the Sentinel one of the most powerful snipers in the game. The charge rifle is also a very valid option for picking at enemies from far away, maybe even more so than the Sentinel. It is a hit-scan weapon, which means that it hits the target instantly when you fire. There is no bullet travel time because it doesn't fire a bullet. It fires a beam, which uses up 2 ammo per shot, by the way, and that beam travels across the map instantly. Now, as you can see, the charge rifle starts off firing a thin, low-damage beam before pulsing and firing one last bit of explosive force. It's that last part of the shot that really does the damage. Now, once you start shooting at a target with it, they may try to move. So to really get the damage in with the charge rifle, you have to track them with the beam. But if you can manage that, you've got a pretty powerful weapon on your hands, and one that is great for leveling up your armor. If you want more information about how leveling up your armor works, check out my armor, backpacks, and knockdown shields video to be released shortly after this. Then we have the triple take. The triple take is named so because it fires 3 projectiles. If you shoot at someone with 3 projectiles, you're more likely to hit them, right? Well, yes, but each shot individually doesn't do a whole lot of damage. The way to really do good damage is to hit the target with all 3 shots. This can be made even easier by aiming down sights with the triple take, as it shares the charge-up feature with the Peacekeeper. Once it's charged, the 3 projectiles fire as a single high-damage shot, making it easier to get full damage. The closer a target is, the easier it will be to hit all 3 shots, and therefore the less necessary it is to charge up the gun. The further away they are, the more necessary the charge shot will be. That's why the triple take is so good. It's adaptable for a sniper rifle. It can be used effectively at so many ranges, even close range, which is more than can be said for the other snipers. Because of the triple shot, the triple take can be used like a shotgun at close quarters. It's definitely a great sniper rifle. Alright, finally we have the last sniper rifle and the last gun in the game. The Kraber. And it is a power weapon. No, it is the power weapon. Remember how I said that the power weapons get switched around sometimes? In fact, the Mastiff used to be in the care package, and the Peacekeeper was regular loot, until they were switched. But the Kraber? It will never, ever come out of the care package. It's a big and bulky weapon, incredibly difficult to use at close range, and it's bolt action, with a slow fire rate and an even slower reload time. It comes with 12 bullets total, and then it's useless. And yet, it is one of the best and most coveted weapons in the entire game. Hitting a body shot with a Kraber does 145 damage. That will instantly shatter any armor in the game, and then do some damage to the player's health. But hitting a headshot? That's where the magic happens. A headshot with the Kraber does 435 damage. That is an instant down on any character in the game, no exceptions. If you practice with the Kraber, and you get good with it, you won't see those 12 bullets and think, that's not enough. You'll see those 12 bullets and think, perfect. 12 kills. And there you go! Weapons and attachments. I know this video was a bit long, but I hope you found everything in it helpful. Or if you know a friend who's interested in getting into Apex, please share it with them. I want this series to be able to help as many people as possible. The next video in this series will cover armor, backpacks, and knockdown shields. So if you want a more in-depth understanding of body shields, inventory management, and things like that, that'll be the video for you. Anyway, if you liked the video, maybe comment, subscribe, and come back for more, and if you do, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everyone. Farewell!